About a year back, I reviewed the high-end sport version of this car and walked away very impressed with it. So I'll link to at the end, or it'll be down in the description if that's one you're interested in. My opinions of a lot of things about the car haven't really changed. I still think in the front it is very good looking. Perhaps now I, slightly prefer the Stinger looks, but I still think in this classic car, it's got a sporty yet also kind of elegant look. I know that's preference. Kind of interesting in the front of this car, as you can see here, the grille has a lot of like aero effects in there, so it's not like a traditional grille you would see. And much like a performance car, it actually has active aero, and then it has an active flap that opens or closes for aerodynamic based on your driving situation. Here it is for efficiency, but it's kind of a neat feature. The car, in this price point, would have active aero in the front. Coming around to the side here, those rims are for efficiency. I think they look okay, though. I generally tend to think the efficient rims don't look as great, but, it's all right. You can know it's the Eco plug-in by this badge here, and also by the blue stripe along here, coming around to the back. Again, I still like the back profile of this car. I think it's very unique and interesting. There's not a whole lot of quite like it. There's other cars that are similar, but nothing quite like this. Then coming around the back, so it's got the LED tail lamps, which are quite nice around the back, and it also has the badging to say, hey, this is the hybrid plug-in, or eco plug-in as they call it, and this little blue stripe or strip down here to say, it's blue and efficient. So I like the exterior. I think it's still one of the better looking cars in its class.
There, it does take up a bit of room. You do also lose the pass-through. It's still a big trunk and big enough for most of what you need, but it is there, and that's the charger as well as a flat repair kit.
Up top, you can see it looks really cool and looks even more beautiful inside. This panoramic roof here, especially in the white, really stands out and accents. I remember the interior of the Sport one I reviewed last being a little nicer. This one's still very nice, though. One big difference between them is, of course, these gauges here, which, the RPM tachometer and heat monitor are gone for a battery charge monitor and a gauge where you can see if you're in the lower eco, you're in EV. If you're charging, you're regeneratively braking. And then, of course, power on the end kind of becomes your RPM tachometer. There, the lower part of that battery gauge is where you drive if you aren't using the plug-in hybrid feature. And then anything in the blue indicates where your actual charge is. Big difference in the middle here. Everything else is pretty standard Kia computer, except the energy flow gauge there. Coming around to the center, also Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, pretty standard stuff there. There's, of course, on this model, the Eco button, which shows how you're doing eco-wise, and also your hybrid drivetrain. It also has a pretty cool feature I like on the nav models. You can see your EV range. There's a little gap there, so you can see where you can get to, and half of that presumably is where you can get there and back. It does have about 29 miles fully charged. Right now we're at 26 miles. We took it on a short drive. Coming down here, good looking center stack. I would say very Audi-esque in its functionality. It's got the embossing, almost a stitched look here in the console. And then down here, there's actually 3 modes. That's a heated steering wheel. There's Active Eco, which is just like Eco mode in any other car. It just maximizes efficiency. You can do either electric vehicle, hybrid electric vehicle, full EV, or if you hold the button down, there is a charge mode, which if you're driving where you need the engine anyway and need maximum power, it'll actually charge the batteries. So if you know later you can run an EV, you just want to run charge mode. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to leave it in EV for now. And then, of course, heated and cooled seats, electronic parking brake, and a auto hold function, where if you just press this and then press down on the brake, it'll hold until you press the accelerator paddle, which is nice for long lights and lots of city stop and go driving as well. Large area in here with 2 power jacks, or power sockets, which is kind of cool, in addition to where you can plug your phone in. Also, this second area here is nice as well. And then, of course, the 2 cup holders. Coming around to the console, also a USB charger in there, so you can charge an extra device, and a little storage cubby, which of course you can remove, but it's kind of nice to hold like change and items like that. Coming around to the back, a little bit less interesting. There is a regular power jack and then an iPhone charger. I thought it was nice to kind of have the combo of the two, so whatever you needed to charge back here, you could. You do get heated seats in the back. Again, this is actually a soft touch material. It's hard to tell with the black, and then this is just more regular plastic. You do get sunshades as well in the front, and then you get some surround sound speakers back here and a pretty nice Harman Kardon subwoofer. Good stereo overall, and the seats on this model are pretty comfy, pretty nice. I took it on a long trip. They were great. Space in back is very good, just under 6 feet. You know, I can fold my legs over, so even 2 6 feet plus people would fit great. Alright, so we are in EV mode, and we're gonna see how fast we can go and still stay in EV mode. Actually kind of going up that hill, I guess. Oh, we're still going up, though. Just very good. I feel like the market for this car is kind of unique because there aren't that many plug-in hybrids. There's a lot of hybrids in this class, but there aren't that many of the plug-in hybrid. You do get a bigger tax credit on the plug-in hybrid as well, which is kind of a nice to have, and you do get that electric. I feel like maybe, and let me know in the comments if what else you might cross-shop something like this with. This would be cross-shopped in a weird way with the Model 3, but if you had like anxiety about finding a supercharger and doing that, and also maybe the Leaf, if you were cross-shopping electric cars with this. And I don't know if you'd really cross-shop this with a regular hybrid. I did review the Camry hybrid, which I'll link to at the end, which is similar. There's just right now, there's a plug-in Prius, but there's no plug-in Camry. And with a fast charger, it can recharge in just a few hours. So if you live less than like 30 miles from work and have a charger there, that's a great solution. You could use this as an electric car all the time, and then just when you need a long trip, you know, you still get the hybrid benefits, but you also get the you know, and benefits of being able to stop for gas right up, and go on your way. So the Model 3 starts at 35 if you're comparing it to that, but, and I know it's weird I'm comparing this to all electric cars, but you can't really compare this to a hybrid either, because it does give you that little bit more, 29 miles of electric range. Let me just talk about the car in general. This one, you know, you still get the style of that one. You don't quite get the athleticism. The steering's a little looser. It's even looser, it seems like, in eco mode. When you pop it out in eco, it does get a little bit tighter. You wouldn't really say it's sporty. It's competent. Surprisingly competent for something with like eco tires. However, the brakes are not as grippy as the regular Optima. The brakes aren't quite as grippy. They do work very well. It's just because of the regenerative feature you have to get into them. It's pretty quick, especially when you combine the, there's a car backing down the road. Pretty quick when you combine the electric and gas motors together. It does actually have a dual clutch transmission, which, you know, works well. You don't feel any of the lurchiness normally that you might on a dual clutch, because the hybrid actually covers that up very, very well. As a highway cruiser, it's pretty comfortable. I've driven it, you know, hundreds of miles and on the highway, and, you know, around town for several days. It's, you know, a great car. It's very quiet, as you can hear, even though we're at like 80 miles an hour. It does have this beautiful panoramic roof up here, so you can, you know, feels very spacious, very open. I love that feature. As an around town car, it's also pretty good around town. I mean, it feels sort of large, larger than the sport model because of the way the steering and suspension set up. You know, but up there with like a Camry or an Accord, it's, you know, it's pretty similar to that for your around town driving. And it's gonna feel, you know, maybe a little bit quicker than the small engine ones of those, but a little bit slower, because this does have the smaller 1.6 liter. So even with the hybrid, it's still not going to feel quite as quick as like the big engine Optima or the V6 Accord or Camry. But it's really going to be all you probably need for around town. Stop. And then it's, you know, enough to cruise nicely on the highway. I actually did an experiment to see how fast it can get on electric only power when you have the battery flat. It gets up to like 95 or so. So pretty much you can, you know, drive the speed limit anywhere. It's going to run your battery down quickly, but you can drive the speed limit in electric only, you know, mode if you wanted to. So Nissan doesn't offer an Optima Hybrid, and the Optima is so long in the tooth, I try not to compare that to this. I think the closest competitor for this would be the Camry Hybrid, which I'll be linking to now. Between the two, I think because I like the idea so much of the plug-in hybrid and having that extra 29 miles of pure electric, I would probably lean a little bit more towards this. They're both very good, very competent cars. I just like having that option. I'm sure eventually Toyota will probably add a plug-in hybrid model in if they don't already have that, you know, by the time you're watching this. One thing I will say about this though is on the highway when you're going quite quickly, the range isn't that great because the battery, you have the extra weight from the large battery back there, and you know, you have the smaller engine, which is a little bit less efficient in like horsepower terms and stuff. Helps make it really torquey around town, but on the freeways it's just kind of... So, you know, I always try to answer the would I buy this with my own money, and I often have to say if I was in the market. Personally, I would do like a very, you know, cheap warranty like Leaf or 500e or something like that, and then like a regular, you know, gas car for the long trips. But if you didn't have the luxury kind of having both an electric car in your family and a gas-powered car, you know, that's efficient and stuff for longer trips, this kind of does bridge that gap nicely. So if I was just, you know, wanting that one car that could kind of do everything pretty well, I think that's kind of a small marketplace for people who need that, but I do think that this does offer something, you know, really cool there. And if you don't want like a Prius plug-in and want something stylish and kind of fun and big and spacious, but you know, it still has that plug-in hybrid, this is probably a really good bet. Well, next time, my speedy racers, drive on.